Today I would like to talk about two projects that Cardin is involved in within our preserves as examples of working together with several partners and citizen scientists under the umbrella of the Conservation Alliance. The first is to provide a comprehensive list of plants that occur within North Mountain preserves, supported by careful recorded data and herbarium specimens. Professional botanists work with trained volunteers in collaboration with the City of Phoenix. And by the way, there are several other projects that are underway or planned. Now, the decision to focus on a flora was easy. To better steward your preserves, you must know what's there. Herbarium specimens voucher a plant growing at a given place at a given time, providing us a snapshot of it, its plant community and conditions that can be referred to in years to come. Collections that house these specimens are repositories for most of what we know about species diversity, flowering and fruiting times, distribution, and even tracking subtle changes, possibly due to climate change. And they link the plant to the scientific name, including new species found in our own backyards. Herbarium specimens also help us understand non-native species, the second largest threat to biodiversity loss after habitat destruction. And within our preserves, we have several, unfortunately. In addition, good intentions have resulted in the planting and establishment of non-native trees like the Chilean mesquite on the left and Mexican palo verdes. And we know that they hybridize with our native trees in the preserves. But the one that keeps us up all night, the one we have the most concern for, is buffelgrass. Buffelgrass was introduced in the U.S. as a livestock forage plant back in the 1930s, and after 1980, the plants really took off. And although Arizona named it declared it as a noxious weed in 2005, at least one branch of the federal government is developing more cold-hardy varieties. This is a relatively undisturbed south-facing slope of Shaw Butte, and the tan denotes buffelgrass. And this is the north-facing slopes of Shaw Butte. Again, that's a buffelgrass in tan. This shows a relatively intact Sonoran Desert ecosystem, while this shows buffelgrass resprouting after fire that was fueled by the same buffelgrass. This is in an ecosystem that is not evolved with fire. So by our teams documenting invasive species, we can determine new introductions into the preserves, we can monitor those previously introduced, and provide baseline data necessary to deal with them. And it is important to document all plants, including invasives, from not only more pristine areas, but disturbed areas, particularly near roads and homes adjacent to the preserves, where well-intentioned landscape plantings can be the source of invasive species, such as fountain grass. The EDGE guidelines recommend appropriate development and plantings near preserve boundaries and should be enforced, but in the context of engaging and educating homeowners so that they truly understand and care how their actions affect the preserves. So these trained volunteers provide high-quality specimens and considerable baseline data that will assist land managers and scientists. And they also share their growing appreciation with others. For example, Marilyn Dryden has a blog showing her North Mountain Preserve photos to over 2,000 followers throughout the world, with several stating that they want to come to Arizona specifically to see the preserves and the plants. The second project involves buffelgrass eradication. Now, several organizations are involved to rid the buffelgrass from the Phoenix preserves, including Master Watershed Stewards, Sonoran Desert Weed Whackers, and the Sierra Club. Because eradicating buffelgrass along roads is the first critical step in its total extirpation, this year City Park and DBG staff and volunteers began a long-term program to control buffelgrass along Galvin Parkway. This is Beth, our librarian, who destroyed not only a lot of plants, but also destroyed our idea of how a librarian acts. Long-term collaborative planning includes restoring the area with plants propagated from seeds and cuttings from this area. And accessing native plant material is hard enough, let alone trying to get material from the place of origin. And this is a challenge that DBG is in the midst of strategizing solutions. And hopefully we can apply knowledge gained from working on this relatively small area on Galvin Parkway to these large areas such as on Shaw Butte. So when we look at this, it's a little more complicated. Sound stewardship is based on sound science. And this should also result in sound legislation. This requires communication, coordination between city, county staff, scientists, and volunteers, and education of and input from everyone, including the public and legislators. And finally, I would like to put the spotlight on North Mountain Visitor Center. Even with city cuts, budget cuts, not only has its doors been open to visitors, but many programs and exhibits are offered, due in large part to the dedicated volunteers of the Save Our Mountains Foundation, in partnership with other organizations in the city of Phoenix. For example, Botanical illustrators developed a permanent exhibits on plants within the preserve, funded by the Central Arizona Conservation Alliance, and seasonal exhibits, such as pollinators and plants within the preserve. We now have a children's coloring book on plants and animals of the preserves, and an illustrated pocket guide of common plants in the preserves is being developed. I think we can learn a lot from the North Mountain Visitor Center. Actions reflect attitudes. The early economy of Phoenix was dependent on the 5 C's: copper, climate, cotton, cattle, and citrus. Perhaps it's time to add another C: conservation, providing Phoenix and surrounding areas many benefits, including even those that are economic. We have a solid foundation to develop from: our nationally and internationally known preserves and parks, many conservation, scientific, and education organizations, very unique programs at ASU, as well as a passionate and large volunteer base. I think we can make Phoenix great, a true point of pride that represents a major thriving city that honors and respects its homeland, the beautiful, unique, and life-sustaining Sonoran Desert, a desert that has more life forms than any place in the United States. It is also, unfortunately, one of the top 12 threatened landscapes in the United States. We truly care about our preserves, their appropriate stewardship and future expansion. Citizens in the city of Phoenix must commit to making this happen, and there must be buy-in at all levels. As more people flock to urban areas throughout the world, we must develop an ethos that reflects our knowledge and ensuing care for our immediate surroundings. Then we can develop some sense of appreciation and respect for nature farther removed from us, important since we are not separate from, but a part of nature. Thank you.